Hey everybody, welcome back. So today I can actually say welcome to a beautiful day in the Arizona desert. It's a little chilly out this morning, about 50 degrees. Probably only going to get to the low to mid 60s, but that's fine. A little breezy too, and the wind's got kind of a bite to it. I've got no customer work today, so you know what let's do? Let's jack this thing up. Let's get the wheels and the tires off. Let's get the brakes out of it. Let's get the axles out. And we'll think about popping that differential out and doing that track lock rebuild, because I got the part sitting and waiting. Okay, so it's jacked up and the wheels and brake drums are off of both sides. I'd like to take this opportunity to get those wheels cleaned up and repainted. And you'll notice I spent a lot of time jacking it up. It's because I'm really particular. First off, I wanted the axle hanging so that I could have better access to the differential. Should have done this when I had the gas tank out, shouldn't I? It would have been easier, but I didn't. So yeah, I wanted the axle hanging, so I have jack stands under the frame up here, and then I jacked the axle up just a little bit and put jack stands under the axle as well, just to kind of make sure I was as safe as I could be, and we're not going anywhere. So anyway, now we're going to get the brakes off, and if you guys have never done drum brakes before, don't be afraid of them. There's nothing hard about them. If you're concerned about getting them back together right, only do one side at a time or take pictures. I'm going to strip both brakes down and pull the axles and the backing plates. And for God's sakes, don't try and do drum brakes without the correct tools. Screwdrivers and vice grips might work in a pinch. You'll hate yourself, but trust me, go buy drum brake tools. They're not that expensive. Spring tools are here, and here, and I got a bunch of them over the years because some of them I thought were crappy and I thought I'd buy better ones. These remove the retaining clips that hold the shoes on. Here's a bleeder wrench. Here's an adjuster wrench. This here isn't even necessary. It just makes it quicker. This lets you size the drum. You put this down into the drum, you slide it, you lock it, and then this lets you set the initial width of the brake shoes. It just keeps you from having to crank the adjuster with this for a whole bunch after you put it together. It's just for speed, for nothing else. Anyway, you can get a set of these for your vehicle. I bet you can get the proper tools to do it for 25, 30 bucks, and it is so much easier. So this is my favorite brake spring tool. I've had this forever, and it is so easy to use. You just stick it under here. See that little lip on it? You stick it under there with that little lip there. You turn it like that, and then you pop it loose like that. And it pops both springs off just like that. And that's all there is to taking the springs off of one of these. The lower spring down below and the adjuster, you can adjust that all the way in if you want. And then the spring will just come off, or you can, sorry if I turned that sideways, or you can simply pull them apart and slide the adjuster out, which is what I do, and then the spring will come out. And then this tool goes on here, and you turn it, and you let it go, you line it up. I can't see it, holding the camera, where is it? You turn it, there it comes, and when it lines up, it just comes right off. I'm gonna save the hardware, but I am buying a whole new hardware kit for both sides. But if you're doing this, make sure you save all these little pins and springs, because you'll be putting them back on. Okay, so I went ahead and pulled that apart by hand and popped the adjuster out. One thing you want to make sure you do with these adjusters, if you don't buy new ones, is make sure there's three. This one is locked up solid, of course. It doesn't take them long to get like that. Now, this little wire that hooks over there and comes down, it's hooked to a little lever right here, and that lever is hooked to both the spring and to that cable. That way, when you hit the brakes in reverse, the whole thing moves like this, and when it pulls back, it turns that adjuster. That's why when the brakes aren't adjusted, you just go backwards, hit the brakes, go backwards, hit the brakes, go backwards, hit the brakes. Do it 8, 10, 12 times and it'll adjust the brakes up. Don't do it too much. People who back up a bunch We typically, like for delivery drivers, we used to disconnect this so that they had to be manually adjusted because they'd have their brakes so tight all the time they'd wear them out. So, going to take the rest of this off. It's pretty simple to do, just like that. It all falls apart because once the springs are out, there's nothing left to really hold it. This little part there that's hooked on the spring, that's the part that that little adjuster cable runs around. That has to be there. Make sure the cable is not behind it, but rather wrapped around it. Then there's this arm here. Once you take the pins out, this will slide out. One of the most annoying parts of drum brakes is that right there, getting the parking brake lever off because of that little squeezy pin. I got a little special tool for that. Honestly, I don't know how much easier it makes it. Watch out for this little spring. Oh, that one broke on mine, didn't it? Yeah, that one broke. Okay. And I need to pop this other adjuster out. Did I get it? Nope. Right there. So dirty I can't see the slot in it. There you go. And then that shoe lifts off. Get the pins out. Now, if you're replacing the wheel cylinder, which I am going to, you're going to have to be really, really careful with the brake line that goes into it. Because when these get old, that brake line, I don't know if you can see it if I'm holding the camera, but when you try and turn that nut that holds it in, you'll either strip the nut out or the line will turn with it and you'll strip and you'll break the line off. So hose it down real good. Be real careful, work it back and forth, make sure you're not breaking anything. And I'm going to do that next. I'm not going to be able to hold the camera while I'll do that, and you can see the nuts right here that hold the axle and the axle seal in. And after that, the axle should just slide right out. And they're kind of a pain in the tush to get to. Some of these axles have holes in it, so you can go in with a wrench to get those off. This one doesn't, but you know what? That's okay. We'll get them. Okay, that side's all apart, and I have the axle sitting out over here, and there's something that I forgot. I wanted to put seals in this, and I completely forgot that the seal is pinched. The seal is mounted to this plate here, and it's pinched in between the end of the axle and the bearings. And in order to get that seal out, I've got to press this bearing and this collar out. And the last time I did this, I had to cut this collar. I could not get it to press off. And I had to buy a new one. And of course, you can't get the bearing off without destroying it. If it was leaking, I would have no choice. But it's not leaking. Plus, these bearings and races look completely fine. It was probably done less than 30,000 miles ago. Yeah, it's probably been, 8-10 years. But they're in good condition and it's not leaking. And there's an inner and an outer, which makes it kind of problematic because that means this bearing is packed with grease, which it still has some on it, but it sure as hell ain't what I'd call packed anymore after all years and the miles. Which means I would absolutely have to repack it. Now, I can completely fill the area that it sits in between the two seals with grease before putting it back together, but there's really no way to pack it without taking it off, and you can't take it off without destroying it. So, I'm going to do the right thing, and I'm going to go have lunch and think about it. Okay, I went and got something to eat, and looked at some of my old paperwork and notes, and looked some stuff up on the internet, and I'm starting to remember all of this. When I bought this Jeep, 30 plus years ago, it still had the two-piece rear axles on it, the stock axles. And within a week or two of owning the thing, I spun one of them. And I bought a set of Moser Engineering axles, and that's what these are. These are still the ones from 30 plus years ago. And they came with ball bearings. Well, after a few years, the ball bearings failed, and when I called up Moser, they told me that they no longer sold that, but I could get an upgrade kit to upgrade it to what's called the Set 9 Timken bearings, which I did. And that's what all this is. These are Set 9 Timken bearings. One side bearing, race, and collar is about 30 bucks. So it would be 60 bucks for two sides. And then, of course, this has an inner and an outer seal. The inner seal keeps the axle lube away from the bearing, and the outer seal keeps dirt and other crap away from the bearing. So I'd have to buy inner and outer seals for both sides as well, and you're got to add, 30, 40 bucks in for that. So it's about 100 bucks worth of parts, and you can buy an entire kit from Moser for about 100 bucks. So I hate replacing parts when I don't think there's anything wrong with them. These bearings look fine. The hard surfacing is still on the races. They look perfectly fine. So I'd love to replace the seals, but I don't want to replace the bearings because there's not a damn thing wrong with them. And unfortunately, there's almost no way to get the bearing off of these without destroying them. So I'm going to take the other side apart and have a look at it. And if everything looks good over there, I think I'm going to rebuild the track lock and put it back together the way it is. Part of me really wants this all replaced, but part of me says don't go down that rabbit hole. So I now have the other side off, and the situation is the same on this side as it was on the other. These bearings and races look absolutely pristine. Honestly, I see no reason to destroy those bearings and press new ones on just to replace what's essentially a dust seal that isn't even not sealing. So I'm not. At least that's what I'm saying right now. I'm going to go out. Let's go over and let's pop the diff cover off, and let's get that carrier assembly out. Maybe I'll change my mind. Who knows? Okay, so there's the diff cover off. Not sure how well you can see that, but our next step is pulling out these 4 bolts that hold these saddle clamps on. And there's a bearing and a race on either side, and there might be shims. We want to be careful to keep everything arranged in such a way that we know what side it all came off of. And that oil that came out of there, I'm telling you, it looked like it was put in yesterday. And we look at the inside of the cover, and it looks good too. Oh, you wonder why these covers are round like that? Almost all of them will have a curved section, at least where the ring gear is. Sure, part of it's to clear the ring gear, but there's another reason for it. As this ring gear spins this way, it throws oil against the back of the pan. We want that gear lube that's thrown against the back of the pan, we want it to travel all the way around, because that's what feeds the pinion on the front and the pinion bearing. So if you put a diff cover on the back that's completely flat, there's a chance you're starving that front pinion and pinion bearing. So think about that before you put one of those cool finned covers on. Look on the inside of it and make sure it's got a curved surface around where that ring gear goes, because if it's flat, that's not good. So anyway, let's unbolt this, let's get that carrier out of there, and let's take a look at that track lock. Okay, I've got the carrier out, and we can see the infamous track lock. If we take a look, I don't know if you can see it down in there, but there is one of the clips that holds the extended ears on the clutch plates in place when you assemble it, and it keeps them from turning. And there's 4 of those, and they are all actually still in place. Too often when you take these things apart, when they've been beat, those clips will be broken, and those plates will be spinning and making a mess of stuff. Anyway, keep in mind when you pull this thing out, and when you pull it out, don't take the bolts on these all the way out. Unthread them all except for, a quarter, 2-3 turns, 2-3 threads anyway, and then start seeing how easy or hard it is to slide this out. This one slid right out. I mean, like a watermelon seed between your fingers. Had I taken those all the way out, that would have been real fun. So, and some of them you have to pry out, and those can be even less fun. So, also, it helps to have a pan like that where if it does fall down onto the pan, it doesn't splash gear oil all over you. So anyway, about that. And also, there's a shim on each side, and there is a bearing and a race. You do not want to mix these up. They want to stay on the side they came off of. So either mark them driver and passenger or keep them in place, but they need to stay there. Other than that, this thing looks really, really nice. It is clean. The fluid looked brand new. The bearings look really, really good considering it's probably got 250,000 miles on it. And I see no issue with rebuilding the track lock and putting it back together. So it is getting late in the day, around 4 o'clock. I think I am going to call it a day and clean up. And one other thing I want to mention, I did luck out. The steel lines, brake lines came off this without a problem. These help a lot. If you don't have a flare nut wrench, it's always good to get one before you start trying to get those steel lines off. But I'm going to start cleaning up. I think I'm going to call it a day, and I think I'm going to stop this video here. So we'll have a disassembly video, then we'll come back and I'll have a video on rebuilding the track lock. And then we may have another video on putting it all back together again. So anyway, thanks for watching, and I will see you soon.